Have you ever wondered what it took for the Roman legions to dominate vast stretches of the ancient world? On the surface, they're admired for unparalleled discipline, sophisticated tactics, and gleaming armor. But beneath that shine is a darker truth: public executions, death lotteries, and ruthless punishments that made their own soldiers tremble. In this video, we'll reveal 10 horrifying facts about the Roman legions that most history books gloss over, exposing the raw brutality that both built and ultimately broke the empire. Terrifying truths you never knew about the Roman army. First, brutal training from farmhands to war machines. Early Roman armies were just local farmers defending their fields. That changed forever when Gauls overran Rome in 390 BC, humiliating the city and pillaging it for months. Determined never to repeat that disaster, the Romans crafted an unprecedented level of training. Recruits endured daily 19-mile marches loaded with gear, grueling weapon drills with heavier wooden replicas, and punishing inspections. No other army in the ancient world pushed its soldiers this hard. But by welding these men into a cohesive force, Rome gained a fearsome advantage on any battlefield. 2. Fear as a disciplinary tool. Roman officers knew that strict obedience was essential in the chaos of war, so they ruled their legions through intimidation. Punishments for minor offenses included savage whippings administered by centurions carrying vine branch rods. Worse, serious infractions like desertion or falling asleep on guard duty could lead to death, sometimes in the form of a public stoning carried out by fellow soldiers. This relentless pressure bonded legionaries together because they realized one weak link could invite brutal repercussions. Fear, paradoxically, became the glue that held the legions together. Third fact: decimation, the death lottery. Nothing struck more terror into a legionary's heart than decimation, a punishment that wiped out a tenth of a unit. If an entire cohort was deemed cowardly or mutinous, soldiers were grouped into tens and forced to draw lots. Whoever drew the short straw was executed by the remaining 9, usually via clubbing. This grim lottery meant even loyal men could die for someone else's mistakes, ensuring that nobody took the chance of disobedience. Though rarely used, decimation's mere possibility kept everyone in line. Fourth, gruesome conquests and mass slaughter. Rome's empire was carved out through bloody campaigns that left millions dead or enslaved. Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars between 58 and 52 BC are a stark example. Over 1 million Gauls were reportedly killed, with another 500,000 sold into slavery. Facing tribes fractured by local rivalries, Rome's well-drilled forces steamrolled their opposition, enslaving or massacring entire populations. Historians debate the exact numbers, but there's no denying that fear and devastation were Rome's most potent tools of expansion, subjugating entire regions in a wave of violence. Fifth, ingenious weapons and relentless tactics. Beyond brute force, the legions introduced innovations that changed warfare forever. They honed the pilum, a throwing spear designed to bend on impact so enemies couldn't toss it back. The iconic scutum shield, curved and built from layered wood, provided superior protection and doubled as a battering weapon. Roman formations, such as the testudo, tortoise, allowed soldiers to advance under a shell of lock shields, nearly impervious to arrows. Coupled with staggering discipline, these tactical methods made the legions seem unstoppable against less organized foes. Sixth fact: turning sea battles into land fights. While Rome excelled on land, its early navies lagged behind seafaring rivals like Carthage. During the First Punic War, the Romans hastily built ships based on captured Carthaginian designs. But their masterstroke was the corvus, a hinged boarding ramp equipped with a metal spike to hook onto an enemy deck. Once locked, Roman legionaries poured across to fight hand-to-hand, converting a naval skirmish into the kind of brutal land combat they dominated. This innovation turned the tide at sea and paved the way for Rome's control of the Mediterranean. Seventh, crucifixions as public warnings. Crucifixion remains one of history's most harrowing forms of execution, and Rome used it liberally to crush dissent. Reserved for sedition, banditry, or large-scale rebellion, it was meant to terrorize onlookers into submission. The most notorious example followed Spartacus's slave revolt, 73 to 71 BC. Once the rebellion was quelled, thousands of captured rebels were crucified along the Appian Way leading into Rome. Each agonizing body served as a stark reminder of Rome's zero-tolerance policy. This brutal tactic kept potential uprisings in check. No one wanted to end up nailed to a cross for days of excruciating suffering. Eighth, the Praetorian Guard's deadly influence. While frontier legions clashed with foreign enemies, the Praetorian Guard kept watch in the capital, often exerting far more power than any single emperor. Formed initially to protect generals, it became the personal bodyguard of Rome's rulers. Over time, it turned into a political kingmaker, plotting assassinations and even auctioning off the throne. Disgruntled Praetorians murdered Emperor Caligula in 41 AD, and later sold imperial power to the highest bidder in 193 AD. Eventually, Emperor Constantine disbanded them in 312 AD, recognizing they had become a lethal threat to stable governance. Ninth, loyalty shift, generals over the empire. As Rome's reach expanded, it brought in non-citizens and auxiliaries to bolster the legions. These men often felt more loyalty to the generals who paid and rewarded them than to a distant city they'd never seen. Ambitious leaders exploited this, marching on Rome to seize power in bloody civil wars. Julius Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon in 49 BC was just the beginning of a long tradition of generals using legions for personal gain. This undermined the unity that had once made Rome strong, fracturing the empire under waves of internal strife. 10th, and the last fact, a legacy built on power and destroyed by it. At their height, the Roman legions were a marvel of organization and endurance, constructing roads, forts, and even entire cities across 3 continents. But that obsession with militarized expansion, extreme discipline, and unwavering might had a hidden cost. By the 4th century AD, civil wars, barbarian incursions, and rampant corruption eroded the empire from within. Ultimately, the same disciplined forces that had built Rome's greatness became catalysts for its downfall, as loyalty splintered and men followed power-hungry commanders instead of a once unified idea of Rome. The Roman legions forged an empire through sheer willpower, fear, and advanced tactics that were centuries ahead of their time. Their story is one of both triumph and terror, showing just how far a society can go when it values conquest above all else. From brutal training to crucifixions on public roads, they demonstrated extremes of discipline and cruelty that still resonate today. While we often celebrate the marvels of Roman roads and aqueducts, we can't ignore the bloodshed that made it all possible. In the end, the Roman legions stand as a powerful reminder that even the mightiest empire can collapse under its own ambitions and the harsh methods used to sustain them.